Our next session is the best approaches to laboratory diagnosis of poultry diseases by Dr. Binu. To invite him on stage, I would request Dr. Sita to please begin the session.
Being the last speaker is a little bit of a challenge. For most of you, it's been a long day, and some of you are already thinking about dinner. But let's keep it simple. What I'm going to do today is, I'm not going to do a brief introduction for the sake of time, but I'm going to talk about laboratory diagnosis. I will cover 3 things regarding laboratory diagnosis. Why we do that? What can we do to do a better job at it? And the importance of quality control, and what are the things that we need to pay attention to as research models in implementing a quality control program. And then we can improve. Sounds good? Alright, there are various reasons for doing a laboratory diagnosis, but the top 3 reasons are an antemortem diagnosis. You want to know the cause of clinical symptoms. Surveillance is an important aspect of doing an antemortem testing. And the third one is necropsy. I think in the poultry industry, maybe that's where we start doing necropsy and go from there. And there are other reasons as well, including certification of freedom from illness, zoonotic reasons, AI, and also legal or regulatory reasons. One of the things what we want to do is be ready to handle a disease outbreak. And that applies to existing and emerging disease outbreaks. I wanted to just share this slide with you to kind of remind about the COVID pandemic. That told us a few things. One, even if it didn't apply to your industry directly, there are collateral damages. Because COVID did not affect poultry per se, but the pandemic affected the industry and the second thing, the importance of One Health. Whatever we do, we need to keep in mind about the interconnectedness among animal health, human health, and environmental health. And on the poultry side of things, when you look at the US experience, in the last few decades, we had 2 HPAI outbreaks. One is still going on. And then we had, in 1820, we had virulent Newcastle disease outbreak. And you know what the foodborne pathogens mainly caused by Salmonella, E. coli, and Campylobacter as a growing concern for the industry and also for the consumers. And then emergence of antimicrobial resistant strains is getting ever more important because there was some regulations implemented recently that to solve some problems but created some other problems. So this is an ongoing saga. So for all of these reasons, it's important to do laboratory diagnosis. And I just wanted to share this slide as well to show that probably this is one of the longest and largest poultry disease outbreak, at least in the US. Would you agree with that? And it already affected 82 million birds, 1100 frogs or more. So when you have a diagnostic laboratory that can do tests that are rapid, accurate, simple to perform, cost-effective and reliable, that has very positive impact on the economic production of poultry, including promoting and protecting animal health, reducing disease spread, saving resources, ensuring food safety, saving money, ensuring sustainable growth of operations and providing data for decision makers. So when we look at laboratory diagnosis, there are a few things that we need to pay attention to. And there is no hardcore or difficult science here, very simple guidelines and procedures that we need to follow, which we can implement tomorrow. We don't need a lot of investment here. We know a lot of these things. What we need to put together these days to have a robust laboratory diagnosis and follow-up. So when we decide to do a laboratory diagnosis, we need to know what we are looking for. The two main approaches, of course, detection of antigen and then immune response. So based on the sample type of variant and also the test to select the variant. So for detection of the pathogen, we're looking for the presence, visualization, antigen or nucleic acid, and of course for immune response, we're testing serum samples or bone fluids for antibody response. And surveillance is another important aspect of this. There are two things in surveillance. One, identifying or detecting new or unusual pathogens, antimicrobial resistance, and also making sure that we have the adequate resources and quality assurance to implement the programs. And the second one is to monitor or look at where we are with that ongoing outbreak. Are our control measures working? And what are the determinants that are causing this disease? That could be human determinants, host determinants, or environmental determinants. And typically, I'm sharing this schematic diagram to illustrate the importance of surveillance and what we typically do. This is a human model, but it has got directly application in animal surveillance as well. So we start with individual cases, and then little population patterns or trends, and then compile all that information to take actions. So when you decide to pick a test, whether it's for surveillance or diagnostic purposes, you need to know certain parameter characteristics of the test. How many of you are veterinarians? So you have learned it in vet school and took exams and then you forget about it. But in a diagnostic setting, this is important. And I don't want to go through the details, but when you look at sensitivity, think about the ability to detect positives. When you talk about specificity, think about the ability to detect negatives when there are no diseases. Positive predictive value, the proportion of patients showing positive cases or positive results, and negative predictive value, proportion of patients testing negative when there are no diseases. And then robustness, meaning the test is capable of doing its job even if there are some minor variations in the test conditions. And the most important thing about laboratory diagnosis is collection, packaging, and transport of specimens. 3 R's, right site, right animal, and right time. Very simple, but you will be surprised how many times we get inappropriate samples in the lab. So pay attention to what system is affected and what samples are collected, and when are you collecting those samples. For example, look at the clinical signs and what are the most likely out of shedding. That's where we want to collect the samples from. Timing. It's always important to collect the samples at the right time. If you're looking for pathogens, the right time would be early in the onset of diseases. I think there was a question to share about whether dead birds are the samples for pathogen detection. Of course, you can do necropsy and sample collection, but if you want to look for a pathogen, the right sample would be early on in the infection or acute phase of infection. But if you're looking for serology, then you need to try 2 or 3 weeks later. Then transportation and storage are also very important. For swabs or any clinical samples, make a point to keep them moist. You can use various transport media, including viral transport media, VHI, TBTB, or HBS, or simply PPS or saline. And when you store samples Are you storing these samples for short-term storage or long-term? For short-term storage, you can, for example, fixed tissues, you can store at room temperature. Serum maybe for 1 or 2 days, if it's not too hot, probably you can store at room temperature. But it's always good to store samples in the refrigerator or at 4 degrees. And for long-term storage, you can say that 20 degrees or -20 or -80. And if you're thinking about a glutination test, it's better not to store serum in the freezer. Similarly, if you're looking for virus isolation, it's a good idea to store samples at -80 rather than -20. And when we collect samples like swabs, it's always a good idea to use Dacron, polyester, nylon, foam swabs or yeast swabs rather than cotton swabs. Cotton swabs would work, but it may not be the ideal swab material for virus isolation or culture. But if you're going to plate directly from a tissue, probably you can use a cotton swab. Again, tissue substitute samples, fecal matter, make sure you collect about percentage, you sample from the flock. But always use appropriate collection tools. In the case of poultry, you know, like a syringe and needle, like a brachial puncture and blood pressure, put it on. And filter papers are commonly used nowadays for antibody and antigen. FDA cards are getting popular now. It's an ideal sample device for molecular testing, storage. You can store them at room temperature for a few days. And it's easy to process them as there are different types of FDA cards available, different things you can do. You can either extract or do directly with PCR. And environment samples also keep them moist. You can, I think Dr. Philip talked about environment sample collection, so I don't want to go to the details there. It's always best to ship them overnight and make sure that you give the cold chain. Especially when you're doing culture, it's good to get the culture started within 24 hours of collection. So when you submit a sample to a diagnostic lab, the most important thing is communication. You are collecting a sample and sending it to the lab. The lab personnel may not have any idea what's going on in the form. So how do you let them know what's going on? Through your submission form. Make sure that you complete the form as much as possible. It's a simple thing, but we are listening also forget things, and most of them, in our lab, almost 80% of the cases we get incomplete submission forms. And I think that's kind of the meaning of that. But it affects the sample processing and testing and selection of individual ideal testing, and it affects the quality of your test results as well. Make sure that you list any medications involved, particularly antibiotics, and also do a short list of the differentials. At least for a minimum, you could breed, strain, and age, and for sampling form, at least include location and site. Packaging. So I want to mention 3 things here. One, follow the rules and regulations of the authority of your country or region. For the US, we follow the guidelines and rules of Department of Transportation. The second thing, always make sure that you have a secondary material and absorb material along your primary material. And the third one, label the boxes properly. And at any cost, you need to prevent leakage and breakage of samples, because that's going to affect the quality of your results. It's also a health risk for lab personnel. A few months ago, our lab received a set of samples in a plastic jar with a yellow cap, the screw cap. So they tightened the cap and sent some samples. And our technician put it on the bench near her workspace, and she moved to get something, and this jar exploded. You know what happened? The jar was filled with the dry ice. Dry ice and some vials of viruses, which exploded. So we need to be careful how we pack our shipment and how we send it, and convey the information. This is dry ice. At least the lab people know that you're sending this using dry ice. When it gets to diagnosis, of course, you will have different test requests to be carcass for the biopsy, or you wanted to do a demonstration or EM or a culture, you want to do an antigen or antibody test or nucleic acid-based test or new technologies, and then those samples will go to appropriate sections. I just wanted to give you the different sections in a diagnostic lab. Typically, almost all diagnostic labs will have a sample receiving area or accessions area. Then depending on your requirements and resources available, you may have different sections. But typically, you have a laboratory microbiology section, biology, serology section, parasitology, anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, and molecular diagnostic sections. This is a kind of typical, but it will vary depending on the resources available and the requirements. So this is a typical workflow. Samples will be received in the accessions, the boxes that come here, and the people collected and take out the samples, enter the information in the computers, and then send specimens to appropriate sections where they do the procedure, enter the results, and report the results to clients. And most labs these days use a laboratory information management system. There are a number of commercially available LIMS out there. Many of you may be using some of these LIMS. In UGA, in our diagnostic lab, we use a software called VetView. This was created by UGA, but the clients can enter, log into their specific account and see the results in real time. Now, we also have an online submission feature where they can log into the portal and submit cases online. And also follow through, in real time where the tests are and what the results are. And I wanted to talk about conventional and molecular diagnostic tests. We still use a number of conventional diagnostic tests which are very relevant. Some of the labs have stopped running some of these assays, like some of the labs have stopped running embryonic denomination. Another one is electron microscope, which is very expensive to maintain, so most labs are not away with it or move to a centralized location. And cytology, even IHC, IFA, HEID, and ELISA are still common. HI testing, I think still poultry diagnostic purposes, people still use HI, but on the mammalian side, most people have discontinued using HI. So when you look at the last 10 years in our lab, we have seen a significant reduction in conventional diagnostic assays and an increase in molecular diagnostic assays. About 142% increase in molecular testing in the last 10 years at our diagnostic lab. And most of these diagnostic assays are PCRs, either real-time or gel-based PCRs. And sequencing is also very, very popular. And PCR can be used for diagnostic purposes, surveillance purposes, and also vaccine monitoring, especially in the P1 situation, or also for poultry management. And gene sequencing, both Sanger and tinctures, are very common these days. CRISPR is getting slowly into the diagnostic arena. People use it for research a lot, and our UGA researchers are currently working on developing different diagnostic assays using CRISPR technology. Nanodiagnostics is another technology that is getting into the diagnostic arena using nanoparticles and nanodevices. And microfluidic chips is also moving towards the animal testing. It's very common these days in human testing with proteomic approach, genomic approach, drugs discovery, and also even cloning, using tissues like a live chip. Are commonly used in human side, but now after COVID, I think a lot of diagnostic systems are getting based on the microfluidic chips technology. So, like I mentioned, people use gel electrophoresis, PCR, as well as real-time PCR, and I wanted to share some of the instruments that we use in our lab. The cost-to-use system is a cool PCR real-time PCR system where you can analyze results remotely. You don't have to be in the lab as you set it up. And digital PCR is also getting introduced into the diagnostic arena, where we recently acquired a digital PCR and now we are developing some assays. The good thing about digital PCR is it's very useful when you have PCR inhibitors. Because you're they're creating thousands of droplets and analyzing each droplet, right? So you can kind of eliminate the inhibitory substances in this area. And liquid handling robots are a good equipment system to have when you handle high-level industry. And use things like high throughput, RD extraction, gas extraction, magnetic processor, and ECN extraction. This is a nice thing if you want to extract nucleic acid from forming fixed fat and tissues. And you also do next-gen sequencing. So sequencing was not economically feasible in the past, but the expense has gone down significantly. It used to cost more than $1 million to sequence a genome in 2007. Now it is a few hundreds. I think there are companies that do for less than $100 these days. And if you look at next generation sequencing, it has higher sensitivity, faster turnaround time, and you cover a lot of genome length by running next-gen sequencing. And it is able to hundreds of thousands of genes can be analyzed using this platform. And one of the major impediments in doing sequencing was bioinformatics, because you needed a skilled bioinformatician to read the data, right? You generate a lot of data, big data, and you don't know what does that mean, right? What's the clinical relevance of what you find? But the good thing now is that you have a lot of free tools available for you to use, easy to get trained and use. And in pathology, RNA scope is getting popular these days. It's an in situ hybridization, and there are instruments that you can commercially buy, and this is highly sensitive and specific. And it's a nice thing in pathology investigations. And precision medicine is another area that's getting into animal industry, very popular in human medicine. But precision ag is very popular. I think many of the industries you may be using different aspects of precision ag, but precision diagnostics is also coming. I think there's a future for that. And I wanted to share some examples of lab testing. In the case of avian influenza, just it's been a problem everywhere. Sample collection, right? So if it's a dialysis bird, of course, all the pharyngeal swab will be a sample. Like I said, if it's a waterfall, make sure you have a vital sample. And if you tell both oropharyngeal and vital swabs. And always make sure you put that in the medium. For NHL, here in NHL lab, that is a National Animal Health Laboratory Network, but based on that guidelines, we can put up to 5 or up to 11 slots in one tube, 5 or 11 slots in one tube with PHI. That's a very artificial. And then what we do for AI in our lab is we do matrix PCR and then time. And sequencing is also very common used. Same with the nucleic acid business. I don't want to go to the details of salmonella, it will do a great job, I think. E. coli also do primary isolation in selective and differential media. For that, same with Campylobacter, you have transport media, maybe stored or that are commonly used, and then selective media, charcoal or media, and then biochemicals. About biochemicals, Microsoft is a new technology, recently new technology. Many labs have transitioned mostly into Microsoft. This is our lab use Microsoft a lot instead of biochemical, because Microsoft is very fast. And if you just use the initial investment, it is cheaper on a daily basis. And so Microsoft is very commonly used these days. But biochemical is still valid if you don't have it. Again, salmonella testing, I'll skip this as the previous speaker talked about this, but keep in mind isolation amplification, 4 steps, non-selective pre-enrichment, selective enrichment, and selective differential media, and identification using biochemical. Now we can also identify isolations in monitor, and then serogrouping, we use a coordination test in our lab using polyvalent anti-serum, but for serotyping, we don't do serotyping in our lab. We send to National Laboratory Services. there are rapid tests available, EIAs, and immunomagnetic separation. And there are multiple approaches you can do, enrichment and PCR. People try direct PCR, but if it's negative, that may not be actionable. So we'll have to do an enrichment and then PCR. And serology, of course, aggregation test and EIAs. Now, I wanted to spend a few minutes to talk about point of care testing. There's a lot of funding these days on point of care testing, and we are also investing money in point of care testing because there's merit in it. Because for early detection, you can do it at the offsite, and it's very useful in case of an outbreak. You can detect early on and then use a diagnostic lab for help. But you can, the people working there right there can do the testing and get the results and know what's going on. It definitely increases profitability. But when you think about a point of care test in your farm, you need to think about what test are you using, what equipment and space requirements are there, and also about the reagents, packaging, shelf life, how these reagents come in bulk or you can kind of import them. So those considerations should be made before you start implementing a point of care test. And there are some examples that people have been doing all these days. Grand stain, quick peripheral procedures, and in-house chemistry and methodology analysis, many of the company animal side. And isothermal analysis and random processes for antigen and antibody detections are available, and a lot of spam tests as well. So when you look at the isothermal nucleic acid amplification, there are so many different technologies available. The most common ones are loop-mediated isothermal amplification and helicase-dependent amplification. We have projects on these two, developing point-of-care testing for avian pathogens. This is another technology I just wanted to share with you that we are interested in. This is Raman spectroscopy. What you're doing is you're doing a surface-enhanced spectroscopy. You're generating spectra based on the protein structure or nucleic acid sequence. And you can multiplex it and use the test as a point of care test using a portable device for multiple pathogens. Again, we are working with this technology on the companion side of things now, but we have an interest in developing this into detecting avian pathogens as well. So when we think about laboratory diagnosis, I think going forward we need to pay attention to digital transformation. Value-added diagnosis, what I mean by that is we do a lot of antimicrobial resistance testing. We need to collect those trends and infographics and share that with our clients. That will add value to our laboratory service. Same with NGS and AP information as well. This is why I mentioned about new business model, because many labs are struggling. So we need to make sure that we are sustainable. We at least break even. So we need to think about new business approaches as well. And COVID literally told us the effect of our health initiatives. Because we've been talking about it, there's been some resistance, but COVID showed that behavior. So taking a more health approach to this. So the bottom line is optimize client experience. Now, moving to quality assurance in diagnostic laboratory. Having a good quality system ensures a few things. That shows your credibility, repeatability, and trust in your testing. And the clients know that your test results can be trusted. And we need to implement this quality assurance of quality different levels, starting from administrative level. We need to have people responsible for things, and there should be accountability. And so that starts with an organizational start and structure, and then the laboratory management, and also personal qualifications, and also a good financial plan and budget in place to implement the quality program. At the management level, it's important to have a quality manager, at least a quality manager, and if possible, some staff members to help that manager. And then you have documents on everything you do. The basic aspect of a good quality management system is you say what you do, and you do what you say, and document. So there should be a document for everything you do. And then there should be a procedure for sending samples to other labs. With the referral labs or subcontracting labs, then also all laboratory transactions should be documented. And then how you handle client complaints, if there's a deviation from procedure, that should be investigated. There should be mechanisms in place to address all these matters. And then also, how are you going to keep each records? And a mechanism to do internal audits, at least in a yearly manner. And then a quality management system review, also to make sure that there's compliance. And at the technician level, the important things are you have qualified electrical technicians, and they know what they're doing. You have the facilities and infrastructure, including equipment for them to do their job. And then they know what methods and technologies to use. They do the control tracking, use antibodies and things like that to document what the values. And also quality control and quality assurance of each test result, then reporting of those results, and then storing the nutrition requirements of samples. So, with that, I will conclude. And before I get there, I wanted to share with this audience the job you all are doing. When we work in animal agriculture, including poultry industry, we do at least these 5 things. One is feeding the world. Then protecting the environment, improving health, growing economy, and equally important, enriching you. We are also training, teaching, and nurturing future leaders to lead this industry. So you also be very proud of the job you do. With that, so when you look at lab diagnosis, early and accurate diagnosis is very important to minimize the spread of infection. Then specimen collection should be done on the right side, right time. Right animal. And then specimens should be packaged appropriately in the cold chain and make sure you prevent leakage and breakage. And then submission forms should be filled completely, and then test should be chosen based on the purpose of testing. So both conventional and molecular approaches have value. And we should select tests based on the requirement, the purpose, and our needs. And point of care testing is great value, and it's going to stay and grow, so we need to pay attention to that and try to implement point of care testing as much as possible. And it would be helpful to have a written plan. We have red books and things like that in the US that has documented everything that we need to know by responding to a disease outbreak, including for disease outbreak. And then quality assurance and quality control are very important in diagnostic labs to make sure that you have accurate, useful, and actionable diagnosis. So when we use the test and technology, whether conventional or molecular, with the guidance of the subject matter experts in the lab, and with the support of administration and leadership, I think we get the maximum benefit out of a diagnostic laboratory. And I'll summarize by highlighting the main takeaways. It is lab diagnosis. Make sure you know why you are doing it. And based on the selected test, and make sure your tests have the desired characteristics. When it comes to collecting, packaging, and transporting, we already talked about collecting specimens from the right side. So you repeat this right animal and right time, and making sure that you follow rules and regulations of your transportation authority, and then maintaining cold chain. That's very important. Whether it's a cold season or not, make sure you maintain cold chain in your packaging. And when it comes to point of care testing, make sure you look at the equipment and space requirements, packaging and shelf life of reagents and kits, and also the desired test characteristics also apply to point of care testing. And when it comes to quality assurance, make sure you establish standards at the administrative, management, and technical sides. We use our lab mainly focus on ISO 17025. So, depending on what the requirements are, you need to have standards written in your procedures, and you are comparing to those standards to assure compliance. Then, make sure the quality management system is important for the growth and sustainability of laboratory and industry. it serves. And the important thing here is the quality of your results depend on the quality of your sample. Garbage in, garbage out. If you collect samples in a proper manner, complete all the paperwork, and make sure that you get those samples without compromising the quality of the samples into the diagnostic laboratory, there's a good chance that you get quality results as well. So keep that in mind. With that, I would like to acknowledge that a number of people at various stages of my career have and still continue to support. I'm really grateful for them. And when it comes to quality and early diagnosis, don't wait for perfection. You can start now and make sure you do continuous improvement. Every day you make progress, and that way you can reach to where you want to. Thank you for listening.